Let's get right into it, Tradon. NHL, lots of things going on. You always got to get some good things to talk about. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, man. Well, I got to start out with the fantasy hockey, as you guys already kind of alluded to. I beat Mike today this week with 999 points, second in the league this week behind you, Eric. That was an incredible win. James, you won your three wins in a row now. And let's see, Eric, you obviously beat Alex, and Tyler, you lost to Jess, my dude.
You lost to Jess.
Brutal.
Damn, bro.
Brutal.
Damn.
Actually,
The worst
you
week.
had the worst point total.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It was
congratulations on
Embarrassing.
brutal week.
but still, it's
But-
not a big
but-
deal because
But I beat you in fantasy basketball, so I got
you
that
did.
one.
You did. Yeah, I had a bad week there.
Yeah.
But Eric still leads Actually, Eric and Alex are both tied at 5-1. James, you're 4-2, along with Tyler, and I am 3-3. So the TLDR boys are leading the pack right now, as it should be. So anyway, moving on. We talked about the Tahoe games. There's a little bit of a interesting, dilemma there with the sun started melting the ice in their morning games or in their their early afternoon games. So they had to kind of switch around the times a little bit. But nonetheless, they were still very, very fun to watch, in my opinion. It's just always cool to see hockey played outside. That's where it kind of originated. And it definitely had a Mystery Alaska vibe. Did anybody else did you guys catch the games at all?
I
saw the first period, and then
Yeah.
I realized it stopped until midnight or something. Like crazy.
Yeah, it started back at 9 our time.
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody has a chance to see it on TV, if there's a replay, it's just really cool to see. Even just the highlights, it's just really cool to see an outdoor game, especially with that backdrop in that first period, or in the second game. The late evening had a nice sunset. It looked really, really cool. But moving on to the nitty gritty this week. Sidney Crosby was honored by both the Penguins and the NHL this week for his 1,000th game played, which is a huge accomplishment in the NHL. Anytime that a player gets to 1,000 games, it's a huge deal. And an even bigger deal is this. Sidney Crosby became the first Penguin in franchise history to play his 1,000th game in Pittsburgh. Like no player's ever done that. A lot of players play their 1,000th game over the course of a couple teams. Sidney's been there the whole time, so that's a huge accomplishment and milestone in and of itself. Alex, I told you to kind of look up Sidney Crosby's impact on the NHL. I mean, we could go into his stats, and I'll go in a bit, but really we kind of look at Sidney Crosby as an ambassador for this. And in your mind, what makes him such a great ambassador for the sport of hockey?
Yeah, I mean, okay, the fact that he's the first Penguin to do it is kind of astounding, like with how much history that franchise has.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of nuts. But yeah, Sidney Crosby, he came up as, one of the most touted prospects of his age range. And other than the injuries, he's lived up to it. And he's a huge face he's probably been the face of hockey in the last decade, I'd say. Maybe like him and Ovi. And, I was texting with my buddy who's a big Penguins fan, and I was talking to him about Sid, and he put it in a really good point, is like the Sid Ovechkin rivalry kind of kept hockey alive. They had some strife, they had, all this turmoil within the league, but it reminded him, and now that he made that comparison, of the Magic Bird rivalry in the 80s in the NBA, when the NBA was struggling, and kind of Sid and Ovi, these epic battles they've had, both future first ballot Hall of Famers. And Sid's done so much for both, in Pittsburgh, in Canada. I mean, he's had, for the Olympics, he had, one of the biggest Olympic gold medal goals of all time. Heartbreaking for us Americans, but yeah, for the Canadians, can't deny it was pretty awesome. But yeah, Sid's been a huge part of the game. 1,000 games, congrats to him, and it feels like he's still got a long way to go.
Yeah. I mean, I totally with you there. I mean, Sidney Crosby is just, like you said, the face of the league. The guy has 3 cups, 2 gold medals, I believe, and then one absolutely, that last gold medal of his was just I guess that would have been his first gold medal and was absolutely incredible. Look, he has 468 goals, 810 assists for 1,278 points. Over 1,000 games. That's truly astonishing. But what I think really kind of sets him apart over really a lot of players in the NHL is his availability to everybody, from media to fans to pretty much everything. I mean, this guy will wait after away games to talk to media on every single game. And you don't see that with all these players. He even gets asked, and told, Sid, you don't have to do this every game. And he says, well, I'm in the position that I am because, and that's that's just all part of it. Like if you're the face of the franchise, you're in front of a camera, you're talking with fans, engaging with fans, engaging with media. And that's what really makes him such a big part of hockey as a whole. And at one point when he came in, he was a bit Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. I mean, that says something. Especially because Pittsburgh wasn't doing very well then, and neither was the Penguins. And then he came in and just completely turned the franchise around. So he's definitely one of the greatest ambassadors to ever play the game, next to Wayne Gretzky himself. And honestly, before I get into talking about Connor McDavid again, Connor McDavid, please learn from Sidney Crosby's just way he engages with the media. I think that's something that Connor has a little bit of work to do, if I may say so myself. But yeah, bang on Alex. He's just a great ambassador, and congratulations on 1,000 games. Moving on to Connor McDavid. I know that I talked about him a couple weeks ago, and I know that I seem like a big homer for the Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid in general, but Connor McDavid just tied Sidney Crosby as the 8th fastest to reach 500 points, reaching it in 369 games. Oh, and by the way, the 7 players that are in front of those guys, I mean, they're back in an era when you would shoot on a goaltender and 8 times out of 10 it's going in. There was no goaltending, no defense. So these two are really the ones that do it and have done it in this era where goal scoring comes at a premium, points come at a premium. And so that is just an amazing feat. He's having such an incredible offseason. Saturday's game, I don't know if anybody saw that. You need to watch some highlights. The unbelievable game. One of the best games I've ever seen him play in a long time. But while he is having an incredible offensive season, his defensive game has changed, and it definitely shows in a positive light. And it's something that I haven't even seen before, and a lot of Oilers fans and overall NHL fans haven't seen before. So James, in light of that, we look at the offensive numbers, but his defensive numbers are actually completely changing. Do you think that Connor McDavid's evolving into a holistic two-way player, or is this something that is just a one-time deal?
No, I definitely think it's evolving, and you see with every single great player there is ever, right? If you look at Mike Trout came into the league and was a great offensive player, and he's the first person to tell you that his reading off the bat with the baseball wasn't that great. So he spent like 4 or 5 off seasons doing that, and all of a sudden he's one of the best outfielders defensively to play the game as well. Same thing with Kobe. I mean, he had great offensive numbers coming in, but he relied too much on his athleticism. And it's like he started working on his footwork because that's what sucked. And then all of a sudden he was that much better. When great players are great at one thing and they're just obviously the best player in that position for that one thing, they're going to look to something else and work on that, because that's what makes them great, is their ability to constantly change their game, to improve their game, to be better than they were before. Good, better, best, never rest until you're as better and your better is your best. And that's exactly what he lives by. That was a quote by Tim Duncan, by the way. Connor McDavid will continue to evolve, and he's going to continue to get better and better each and every year. He's going to find something, and it may not show on the ice right away. It could just be this minuscule thing that maybe the way he flicks his wrist. It's not going to show right away, but then it just continues to add to his game to make him that much better. We haven't seen Connor McDavid regress at all. The only times his numbers have gone down is when he's been injured, and that's really not his fault. For the most part, when he's healthy, Connor McDavid gets better and better each and every year. So I think that this is just another step to his greatness. Connor McDavid's going to be the best to ever do it.
Yeah. You said it perfectly. I look at stats, and his Corsi stats are the best that we've ever seen. So defensively, he's obviously helping his team on that side. He makes a plus 2.37. He's a 0.37 in grade A chances for per 15 minutes. He's never been close to that. He's always been on the bad end of the he's always made good contributions but he's always been on the bad side of the major mistakes against. And he's not this year. He's on the right side of his man in the defensive zone. And it's something that I've noticed. He's not cheating. Ever seen him, and is getting even more points than he was even prior to that. So he is learning. And his faceoffs have improved huge. He's always had a problem with that, and that alone is a huge stat that as a centerman you need to keep track of. So I agree with you, James. He is evolving. He's going to continue to evolve, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but if he can continue this defensive game and he becomes something that at least a little bit of from like an Andrei Kopitar, we could see this guy win a Selke and win the Hart and win the Ted Lin. I mean, it's crazy. This guy could just walk away with all the hardware. But really all he really cares about is winning a Stanley Cup, and it's obviously showing. So moving on to the West, the Honda West, your guys as LA Kings have won 5 in a row now and have gone 5-4-1 in their last 10 and sit the 5. Actually it dated last time I checked, it was a 5.31 point percentage. It's probably closer to 6 now. Look, Tyler, they are the Kings are turning things around. I mean, they had a rough start. Admittedly, the first 12 games were a little bit shaky, but they have really turned things around. Do you think this is sustainable, and do you think this is going to be a surprise team of the Honda West?
It could be. They're playing really, really well right now. Before they went on this 5-game winning streak, they're on a 4-game losing streak. So I think we're seeing this team definitely is streaky. But right now they're right in the ups. And by the way, they're a 5.59 win percentage. There you go. Updated after today. They also have the second most goals scored in the division, which I don't know if that's ever happened in Kings history. And they got a little closer tonight because the team that's in first in that division are the St. Louis Blues, and they shut them out tonight. So for me, I think this streak kind of started actually in their February 9th overtime loss to the Sharks. They had, lost 4 in a row going into that game, did not look good. But that game, they were down by 2 goals early. They came back, took the lead 3-2. They ended up giving up a goal late in the third and ended up losing overtime. But I think something clicked in that game. I think they found a way to grind back and bounce back from a rough start. And I think we've seen that accumulate since then. They beat the Sharks 2 nights later, 6-2, and they've gone on this 5-game winning streak since. And they've looked really good. I think these next few weeks they're going to play the Blues 5 more times this season. And they're going to play the Knights and the Avs 2 more times as well. So winning those games are going to be huge. Those teams in front of them. I think the road to the 4th spot is not that much of a stretch considering how close it is and how really no other team has really kind of taken over as that dominant 4th team. So I think it's more possible. It's crazy how quickly standings can change in hockey. And it was like last week we were talking about the West, and I didn't even mention the Kings as being a 4th team. And here we are a week later, and shit, man, it could happen. I mean, their stars are shining. Kopi, Doughty, and Brown are top 3 in points, and their young stars are starting to shine. I mean, Kempe has 10 points. Velarde is heating up. He's got, I think, points in his last 4 games. Matt Roy has got a +4. Cal Peterson's looking pretty good. He's got a 296 save percentage and a 243 goals against. I mean, this team's got a good mix of veterans and a good mix of young guys that are starting to finally show their potential. I don't know, man. It is a really small sample size, and we'll have to see if they can sustain it. But I mean, I'm riding the high right now. So if they can keep playing like they have been, and they've looked very good these last few games. They've looked like a playoff contending team. And with the season that is short, man, and with, like I said, with that division, with no team really taking over that 4th spot, go Kings, go! Let's do it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I agree. Whenever you beat one of the top 3 teams in your division, and like you said, we know who the top 3 are going to be. It's that 4th spot that it's really fighting for. And when you beat them 3-0, that says a lot. And you play them again 5 more times, and who knows? I mean, if you go on a huge run, you might be the 3rd team in the division at this rate. What's crazy is Kopitar is playing fantastic. Dustin Brown's resurging, which is great to see. Seems like there's a little bit of a goaltender battle now, which is pretty good to see as well. It's always good when you have goaltenders start to, rise each other up and because you're getting you gain the fruits of that labor there. But like you said, and like you said, it's crazy how the standings change in hockey. Well, it's even more magnified because every game's a 4-point night. If you guys follow my power rankings, I say that multiple times. Every game is so important because what you guys just accomplished today is another 4-point night, and you're going to play Arizona for another 4-point night. And then you play, those rack up, and who knows, we might see them in my top 16. They were this close to being in my top 16 this last week. And hell, if they gain at least, 1 more or 2 more wins this week, you'll see them in there for sure. So I love to see that. So congratulations to the Kings on that one. Keep it up. And last but not least, the NHL is seeing a league average of 0.906 save percentage. That's the worst we have seen since the 9-5 figure in the 2006-2007 season. Also, OT games are up. 26% of games are going to extra time this year. I mean, this is kind of crazy. Oh, sorry, James, you had a question on the last one.
Yeah. So just for Tyler real fast, they went on a 4-game losing streak and went on a 5-game win streak. What changed? Like, what's a tangible difference that clicked with them?
Yeah, it's hard to say as from a fan's perspective, but like I said, there's something that happened. I was watching that game where they had that overtime loss to the Sharks, and they were down 2-0, and it kind of felt like, oh, here we go again. They're gonna lose this game, and I don't know. I don't know if it was something that the coach said during the intermission or something that said, hey guys, like we need to step it up, or we need to come together and find a way to win. And they came back and they grinded that game out, and they ended up losing in overtime, but they came back and fought back. And so I don't know. They have this identity ever since that game that I've noticed. They're grinders, and they just grind out these wins, and they've been playing. It's this mentality of just grinding these games out. And I don't know. Like, I don't know exactly what it was that happened, but something clicked in that game that I've noticed as a fan. Like they just look like a totally different Kings team to me.
They're actually making passes and receiving passes. I feel like they hadn't been doing that all season.
Yeah. Guys and James, you'll see that what happens in a season, it could come down to a save. It could come down to a goal. It could come down to a hit in the middle of a game that just wakes a team up, and then they carry that momentum onto the next game. So maybe that's what we've seen. Unfortunately, I didn't see that transition. But you kind of feel it, and James, you maybe have felt it as early with the Ducks.
This first period was great.
Earlier at the first period, I thought, oh my gosh, just bringing in some new blood and give them some reps, that gives you a little bit of a jump. So maybe that's all they need.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Why did the Ducks waive Adam Henrique off the top of your head?
Bro, he was not producing. His plus minus is at -8. He has 1 goal in the season, and for somebody who they just signed to a 5-year deal, it wasn't worth it. It was kind of like the James Neal thing with Edmonton. They just weren't producing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So he's still on the team, but
yeah, he's on the taxi squad. He'll be brought up when.
So he's a scratch, basically.
Yeah. So if Trevor Zegras gets sent back, Henrique will come back. I mean, they kind of created a.
I thought they just completely got rid of him.
And no one picked him up on waivers. I mean, it would have been a completely different.
That's a massive contract.
Yeah, that's the thing. The only reason that you pick a player like that, even with that much, if you have the cap space and if you're a contender, and at this rate, it's a little early to be doing those kind of moves. So, to your point, Eric, that's going to happen a lot this season. You saw that with Corey Perry. We saw that with so many, insert name here, and then they're already back. I mean, Corey Perry is already playing with the Canadiens still. So,
yeah.
It's such an interesting season, and that taxi squad. It's just that those high profile or those high paid players have to go through the waivers, which is crazy. But moving on, as I said, moving on, the NHL is seeing average of .9068 save percentage, worse since the 905 figure in the 07 season, and OT games are up. 26% of them are going to extra time. Eric, these stats are pretty crazy. I mean, I love overtime. I think it's great. But to see the specifically starting with the goaltending, to see goaltending struggle so much this season, what do you think? Why do you think that is?
So you're saying 90% is bad, and that a lot of goals being scored in the NHL is bad?
Well, if you're a coach, or if you're on the receiving end, I suppose.
I know. We always talk NHL goalies, or I do, and the difference of a .90 versus a .94 is tremendous. You could say, like you're saying, a couple more saves can win you a game, can get you in the playoffs, can get you those extra points. I don't know. I think it could be has to do with there's a lot of back-to-backs this year, and you're playing the same team multiple times. Maybe teams are learning these goalies easier, like the Kings are going to play Binnington 5 more times. Maybe they'll play him at least 3 out of those 5, considering back-to-backs. But so there's more back-to-backs. You're playing similar teams more. And I think, I don't know, this could be another reason that they didn't have – I wonder if they didn't have that many expectations on this season. Like the NBA started up before them. And it seemed like everyone was waiting, when is the NHL going to start? They finally it seemed like they came to a quick last minute decision. All right, we're going to go 56 games. Maybe a lot of these goalies came in unprepared compared to as they would in a regular season. We got about there's 40 games left for most teams, the ones that didn't get COVID yet. But there's been some injuries too, with multiple different goalies playing more. So we'll see. It's going to take some time, I think, for a lot of the goalies to get a feel. But the teams that are doing well are the goalies with the Kings, where they're battling each other and both goalies are playing good.
Yeah. I see that. And I guess we could say that the OT games are kind of a result of that. Just goalies giving up goals at opportune times. I think another thing we need to realize and appreciate is the fact that the truncated season brought little to no, a very small in camp, but no preseason. And the thing about goaltending relative to the skating side is goalies need to be practicing at full speed. They need to be playing full speed, moving side to side, taking those hard shots. You don't really get that in practice. You do, but you really don't. Because, not that you're not trying to score in practice, it's just not the same urgency. So I think it took a little bit of time for them to kind of figure that out. Also, you've seen it. The penalty kills are atrocious this year. The penalty killing is really bad, and that's really a goalie stat. Eric, do you think that a shortened preseason has anything to do with it either?
Definitely. I feel like that's your training camp and all that, and preseason is your time to mold your special teams in hockey, just like it would be in football or any other sports. So, that plays a role. It's, I feel like we keep saying that, blaming that, but it's definitely a reason. Less games playing with each other, learning how each other play on the penalty kill or power play. Yeah.
It's interesting times. And I think it's just going to come down to, the worst division in terms of goaltending and defense is the North Division. Interestingly, all the games seem to be blowouts or high scoring affairs. So
it's all those Oilers games.
Yeah. when a team puts up a touchdown, that's a huge deal. Like that's a lot of goals. Anyway, that's really all I had this week. Eric, yeah, check out my
Thank you,
power
Tradon. Yeah, some great NHL insight. We got about 40 games left of the NHL season. Let's just chalk it up, guys. Kings will just make the playoffs. We'll take it from there as far as the NHL goes.